different bubble of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge. It's the Holy Grail.
Improvise. Mysterious.
It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.
I wanted to actually add relative to the 8th color threshold that you sort of introduced around July last year to me, July 16th specifically, but you've said to me personally that you've actually offered that concept many times before.
As early as 2013. Believe it or not, everything that I've said in my first year's worth of the show is all there. It may not be in the same conjugated order, but it's all there.
Yeah.
So I have spoken about the 8th color time, but in the reference of what you're saying, when we had our universal audit of all karma that was on the surface in 2014 and the resolution of that in 2015 and the mass amount of walk-ins that came in, is where the potentiality of the 8th color became a very real factor, because the solar system that has a star and all the planets that are spiraling around it had actually entered another groove of galactic time that functioned in 8 colors of time, not 7. So we have upped the scale of galactic energy that is functioning around us. We have gone from microvolts to macrovolts. And those beings that cannot operate on macrovolts as an 8th color, meaning time is non-linear in all perceptions. We are omnidirectional frequency experiencing beings. The whole purpose of Earth is to be omnidirectional time frequency perceptive and projective beings who can seed new planets, new DNA life and wisdom, no longer being adhered to a single linear perception of time. Multifunctional photonic beings of light who can have several thousand bodies simultaneously a part of their existence in equal co-creation, non-competition, as a part of the greater experience of the life of that being.
The reason and purpose of me introducing this as a concept now is that I want to get Andrew to actually share something public that he's offered me, because I actually brought him the variables related to it. And that was, I had this sense last year that there was overall, in order for the reality to maintain itself, it actually requires our energy, our life force. So there's harvesting and there's events like terrorism and trauma and individual soul contracts inserted in fine print, stuff like that, which you've offered many times. And all those sort of things contribute to the harvesting, just in a very quick way to get to this point, that allow us to co-create this reality that we're in via the media and propaganda that corral us in a certain path, individually and overall. And then what I felt was, for a time, there was the need for injections of, say, terrorism in regions to lock down the earth, and then harvest the energy to redeploy in other areas where, a suppression might be required and stuff like that. So there was, say, if it's a tank of fuel, there was 90% full, and that 10% extra required to fill the tank would come from events like trauma and stuff like that, the terrorism that I've just sort of expressed. There's some examples. What I felt was there was a point at some time that a threshold was crossed where, say, the petrol tank of this reality was down to 70%, and those instances of trauma that would harvest and supplement the absence of the total would take it back to 80%, but it would never get to the full tank perspective. And I use that tank as a metaphor, as there's a cost to actually maintain the reality. And Andrew, you've used the language disunity, unity reality. And in order to keep it unified, this harvest was required. And what you sort of said to me is there was a relationship to this time in the eighth color being introduced to the absence of the ability to maintain the reality. And therefore, with this theme of war is being used to actually increase that rate of harvest on one aspect.
Yes.
Do you have anything to add to that?
So the system itself reached a point where it could not harvest the volumes in which it did before and still maintain the adherence to reality. So here's an example. It harvests 20,000 units out of 28,000 potential. It is now can really only harvest 3,000 out of the 28,000 without creating massive changes for itself. And it's reached the point where it actually must use some of its own energy to maintain its infrastructure of control. So it is no longer an unlimited source of fueling the future. Because what the system does is create the futures for all those that are giving power to it. So the amount, like 10 years ago, they could plan 200 years of our world's future. Today, they can barely plan a month of the future of the surface beings. That is how much reduction in the harvest there is. On another scale, it's reached this point because harvest itself is the essence of the people on the surface over many generations. So it's like a farm, each acre produces X amount of stuff. They're getting less and less and less that they can get out of each acre because they have not sowed the fields with positive energy. They've reached a point where their system of reduction was too effective. And for them to let go of some of the rules would mean people would wake up right away. So the system itself is stuck in a rock and a hard place of what it can and what it can't do.
Yeah, beautiful. And that's where I've sort of offered that, like we're an open book sort of thing. And if you actually have the appreciation for what we've sort of said there, is that if you actually have the courage to acknowledge that in the past you may have contributed to all this by your emotional states in certain instances when information is being presented to you, don't beat yourself up by that, but just accept that maybe you have actually contributed. But what are you going to do from this point forward? Like, it doesn't matter what another person does, it only matters what you do in yourself. Because if you actually come through this journey and you've got to this point, you're actually able to hear Andrew and acknowledge his role as a potential what he actually says he is, you actually might be you're likely to be a very powerful being in your region, like I've sort of said, the people I'm sort of finding. And your ability to actually negate what's going on by not being affected by it is a huge thing in itself. And also probably contributing to your ability to actually access you as an eighth color being in itself. There's a relationship there.
Accessing me as an eighth color being is also acknowledging you have already successfully gotten there, and you're trying to go through the haze of race memory, forgotten race memory, race amnesia, and the Swiss cheese of what might be in potential for you. And it is only your internal dialogue with your higher self that can help define the Swiss cheese of race amnesia.
Absolutely.
The connective pattern things that say to you, what is real?
Yeah. The actual, what you said there is actually pretty good for me. It's like actually allowing yourself to be convinced that you're not a powerful being, you're not a multidimensional being, you're not this incarnate being. Like, that's actually the reality playing out on you, and you're accepting it. And when you actually have all the power all the time, and there was no need to become a different being because you already are there. If you accept that you are, then what gets revealed to you? What if you do perceive, you are perceiving, but you're just choosing not to? Yeah, that's a mantle of responsibility. Absolutely. So, I hope that's sort of a, because I like we're talking about the war and the increased rate of war, and what you can actually do is actually, with an appreciation of that, is actually realize the escalation is actually desperation. The increased rate of crazy crap going on in this world is just a byproduct of the desperation of actually being deficient of the resources to actually maintain the illusion.
That's right.
If you step back and not get polarized in your emotion and you actually see it for what it is, it's like, yes, it's actually a finite path coming to a finite, accelerated end. And
So there are other expressions of,
Please.
we'll call it celestial Ouija boarding, where the intention is to connect to a different form of the consciousness of the planet, a much younger or much older version of it. So this is celestial esoterica, where you may have had a collection where you may have gone to 5,000 or 6,000 worlds over, a few hundred years of exploration of the universe, and you've made a series of planetary sigils, and you can become what I call a planetary mailman and delivery service of high frequencies of energies.
I see that, because this is very much similar to the idea of taking artifacts and relics on pilgrimages. Yes. Everything takes an impression. If I meet somebody, if I go somewhere, or if I touch something, each of those will hold my energy, and even psychometrists can read somebody's wristwatch and tell you the personality of somebody. That's quite a basic one, but that's reading the impression that an object was impressed by. So how far does that go?
Very far. So we could use our existing concept of what ley lines are and have some context behind it. The maps that we believe and create ley lines are based off of the cardinal points of our stars, which is astroarchaeology that's very ancient, that's been imprinted to us, based off of where our celestial temples are, the pyramids, Stonehenge, etc., etc. That is also an imprint that isn't our natural ley lines and nexus lines. So there are those that go and communicate to the place that isn't the fake grid. Our consciousness is empowering a currently fake grid or a sacred geometry grid that is based in the exchange of debt between nation states. This is the Babylonian money curse that's keeping this world to a single frequency of time. So you can go to places in the world which don't have lots of consciousness observing it, interacting with the Babylonian money curse, and create these master sigil surfaces on the surface, and have an ancestral hollow earth connection come and add to the frequency, which is other beings in extinction who may want to export some of their light off of this world and make a return trip in a light vessel to something else in the mailman's line.
So we can carry these impressions with us.
Yes.
So we might meet so and so and so and so, and they literally teleport through our through conversation on the other side. Yeah.
Yes.
So, for instance, I might, in a past life, have spoken to, let's say Nikola Tesla, and so if I call up that relationship and speak to you, then I can convey Nikola Tesla's energy, and therefore you can tune into him and query his consciousness at any time you like.
Yes.
God, it's like Heroes. Okay.
Yes. It's a matter of understanding the signature frequency time of the I am being.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the time. All right, so we're talking about like a kind of IP address, but we're talking about it's a
light IP. I'll think of it. So you'll use technical, like a light IP address. Yes.
And it's a coordinate in time and space. Go ahead.
It was 1900 to 1933. We'll just call it a static point in time where it was a 4-color time. Anything past that would be a 7-color time, meaning consciousness had been raised enough consciousness was killed off, went through life reviews, and then was born back into the system that it raised the consciousness of beings.
Being when? What the
1900 to 1933. So that would have been a light IP frequency of time. So if you knew 1900 to 1933 was red, brown, and green, okay, that means you would use your remote viewing lenses to observe red, brown, and green mostly, because the majority of the world would be operating in red, brown, and green. Anything after 1933 would have been a 7-color time, and you would have need to use your remote viewing esoteric practices to observe all 7 layers of the human auric frequency to know what is going on in the seen and unseen world of the being you're observing.
So you then have a 7-color coordinate, and it's like almost like a combination lock using color?
Yep, exactly.
Bing! IP. So how many?
So there are we built 2 frequencies of time in our 117, 16 years that we've got going right now. So we go from the 3-color experiencing time to 7-color experiencing time to anything past 2016, the potential of 8-color time. A handful of consciousness explorers creating the new color and giving a colloquial manifestation in the words that the rest of the population will give labels and agendas and protocols to.
Okay, so let me just unpick that very generically phrased, that there's a new color, and is that color, my friends used to call it magenta.
It's a synthesis of consciousness in the seen and the unseen world. It is, only observed by the 6 senses, which is all 5 senses combined into consciousness that knows it is a sovereign being in reality. So the sovereignty itself determines how high a frequency this 8 colors can be. So there are some that only experience it in the dream and can't bring it into the other world. There are enough that just get enough of it that they come out of the dream world able to remember, 2-3 hours of the dream or just 5-6 minutes of it. That is representing the actual amount of voltage behind what you took in. Trying to give terminology we can all do. If we call it polarity or charge. You took a charge in that will last for a certain amount of inhuman hours or time frequency. After a while, people will begin to experience more of the 8th color time, not just in their dream world, but in deja vu moments and other moments as what I call global dream time awakening, where there is a sense of communion among people. We all look and kind of have this deja vu moment to each other for a microsecond. And that is where both the side of the planet that's facing the sun and the side of the planet that's not facing the sun, the light and the dark, where our dream world synthesize with the real world, creating the 8th color in physicality.
Wow. So I believe that this is really starting to manifest right now, it's really hitting the ground like this week kind of thing, isn't it, Andrew?
Yes.
Because I'm really feeling the veil. I'm really feeling the veil of not feeling things anymore. It's like it's like the veil has lifted and nobody's noticed.
This is what I said on July the 16th. I said today is day 1, page 1 of the book of make sure you have your popcorn out because something weird's about to happen. It may be a trilogy, it may be a 1,000-page book, but it is day 1, page 1. It has been written, set in stone. Yes, I believe that we are on a path of a consciousness awakening, and that 2 days ago was one of those game changers that everyone's trying to really understand what this change in rule means and the potentials of plays that come from it.
So
and then there's beings like us. Well, what do? We out-create the system now.
So this is the, it was that the 16th of the 7th of 16? So again, 777 on a subtle way.
Yep.
An encoded 77 rather than the blatant 777, which something else happened that day. But there was another harmonic that day as well. Do you remember the 7th? 7th of July.
The 7th of July?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
It seemed to be a rather intense version of what we're talking about. It's like a big bloop that it all started to kick off.
That's when I was doing lots of ritual and ceremony on the lead up to that, because I had a series of things go on in my life that I just had to, mentally take care of, business take care of, spiritually take care of, because there was just this assault on all levels to get stuff done.
Yeah.
That had been going on for weeks.
Yeah, it was like
and I began to
tidy.
notice, like, yeah, it get tidy, and then I'm like, something's happening here. And on the 7th, I'm like, in my ritual, and I'm doing all my stuff and in the flow, and I was wowing my own self. And it was like I had contracted myself to like have that self-testing experience. And then on the 16th, it was, all right, it's on, like Donkey Kong.
Or whack-a-mole. But it was quite you're right. I felt, and it's really funny because I had to tidy my house and organize my house and get everything, in order by that day. It felt like. And then everything's gone to hell since then. And it's time, I can tidy up again tomorrow, it's like, whew. But there's these, like, 7 to 10 day periods of, like, intense fantasy. And then there's, like, about 3 or 4 days of, like, oh, what the crap just happened? Oh my God, here's another one. It's just like, and then we go for another one. Oh, here we go. But we're getting good at riding the wave, I think.
I call those spikes in consciousness, where the earth itself goes through what I call a yawning phase, where it's beginning to expand more of its consciousness to those that are ready to pay attention to and work with it, and take the abundance energy as an offering and physically do something with it, whether it's thinking, creating, artwork, music, etc., whatever it is, it's giving you this abundant energy. And these spikes in consciousness, are affecting the variety of people in awakened and unawakened states to find their true potentials, to find what motivation and inspiration means, to let go of the system of domination and control and out-create in front of you with the power of love. I mean, hell, the power of one song to transit one generation to another. We are one love song away from the year 2016 having a potential of creating a love frequency in 2027 that crosses the generations that have yet to been created yet.
Well, exactly. And this is what I'm feeling, that almost everything that we've been talking about for the last few years, everything that I've been learning for the last 30, 40 years, everything that happened since my bike crash and wake me up and get me to here, everything is preparing for this week. To me, this is the time of the crossing. And there's probably some, astronomical things that are going on at the same time. What do you think, Andrew?
I agree, because our ridiculous American corporate political system is showing the worst of the worst of the worst, trying to stop people from paying attention to what's going around them so that they follow the party line. And as above, so below, that it is so disastrous for them now because their corruption has gone so far that people are walking away in droves.
Yeah.
Turning off the television and turning on things like Wolf Spirit Radio or my show or your show or somebody else's, doesn't matter who it is, and they're looking for an alternate source of entertainment that isn't ultimately disempowering for them.
Exactly. Something that actually builds people up instead of knocks people down. This is the whole thing. It's just like Roman gladiators, like watching people hack each other to bits. It's just like sick.
And we can out-create that. Well,
this is what, we are creating this. This is what we're doing right now, isn't it? We're right creating a series of spaces where the possibility for a better future can allow itself to form without being hacked to pieces, or polluted in ways that are debasing to the divinity of all Lyran descendants, of everybody. But to see, everybody's source connection gives them an equal right in this place.
today's the 7th, right?
You had a busy day?
Yes, I did a recording with Anne Bancroft and Allison, the Lucia late lady, on a new concept show we're doing, which is about dating and relationships and the mistakes that are made. And we got about 3-4 hours of actual good filming and recording, 22 to 33-minute episodes, short subject topics, 3 people talking, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so we're going to record again tomorrow, and then I have another one with David, and basically the next 7 days during the day I'm recording. I have interviews that are being set up. There's 1 hour that it's just us preparing, but there's some still cool footage in there and really cool audios.
Yeah.
Inspiration-based moments, and then there's some really potent conversations about getting out and getting out people, stuff. Basically, I had a formula of busting myths, answering frequently asked questions, but using a spiritual point of view to it, or a more educated person's spiritually educated person's point of view. What spiritual hygiene is and how to know if you're with a low frequency person.
Which all needs to be explained because people have no idea.
Right. That what you texted me before about why people don't accept psychics, that little line there. That's one of those things. There's awesome answers, but what are we teaching out of it?
Well, my attitude was, to me, an existence without perception is very rare. We think it's normal, but it's actually rare. It seems like people with abilities and stuff it was like, my attitude is we're in our reality now. And we're at the consequence of amnesia, this situation we're in, but we accommodate amnesia. It doesn't mean we have to have, like we co-create with it and those sort of things, but to me, it seems like there's been to get the reality how it is, there's been a massive effort. But it'd be interesting to hear, like, say you talk about the elimination of the old teachers and stuff, and like elimination of the shamans and stuff like that. So I see one aspect we're vulnerable to the hauntings and stuff, which was a normal aspect of the hygiene of like a culture, you know what I mean? That those sort of elements were there. And it's designed to be a tool, you know what I mean? Like invasions of colonization were like haunting the Dreamtime, say, of Australia and stuff like that, to sort of undercut us consciously to be where we're at. So just those sort of things. Like for me, it's about reverse engineering how we got to here and how normal it is to have perception. 3D 5 sense reality isn't very common, from my perspective. So just those sort of things, like I think you would actually reveal amazing history components and stuff that might trigger a lot of people, but yeah, I see our reality as a consequence of a lot being done, and people just accept it from the amnesia sort of perspective. So it's a way for you to bridge sort of beyond that, and
it's a consequence and a byproduct.
Yeah. But to me, like, people have abilities, they just don't know it, and it's their innate aspect of how they operate in themselves, when actually they're employing technology that they don't realize. And just because, like, say from the society perspective, there's a real diminishing of psychic abilities, in the conscious awareness. It's like, say my mother's generation, it's like there's a real stigma to it, It's like, oh, we've got to keep that hush hush quiet and not be known, Whereas our era is a bit more open to it. But say I know, say people like Ronald Reagan employed, psychics and stuff like that, and the military and all that have it in them. But the public, like, say, even going back to Uri Geller, he was destroyed in the consciousness of people because he was triggering thousands of people. That's I heard this lecture by Andrew Bartzis talking about they had to destroy his credibility because he was triggering thousands around the world, you know. So to me, it's one aspect that we can actually, you know, like hearing you talk about it, it would be more, people would contemplate it and maybe get layers from it, you know, just like, oh shit, I have accepted that it's not real, and I impose it on myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
So that's sort of the equation, you know, I'm working from, and say we accept it is how it is now, but we reverse engineer it. It's not how it actually is. It's we accommodate the reality how it is, and the global narrative is part of it. And there is a, you know, a lack of value of perceptions, you know, whereas to me, spiritual healing and stuff should be the most valuable thing. So,
Good, but it has been removed from people as the oral teachers and historians removed. Those traditions were no longer used. They didn't know what they were for, and then they were, you know, bred away.
yeah.
And now we're trying to rediscover them, but so many people make mistakes, so many mistakes in their early parts of their journey where they shouldn't. But there's no common moral code teacher system out there.
Yeah, I mean, like things like Star Wars and the Jedi and stuff like that.
Yep.
You know, those sort of things are mystical training sort of things, you know, and people resonate with them so much. They feel like there is, I mean, you look at the commercial success, it's, to me, commercial and enduring success over generations, which is something you said, like about Pink Floyd and stuff. They're tapping into something, you know. So there's a longing for an existence like that as a possibility, you know. But they go back to their life, and you know, they be the Neo, like working in the corporation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Neo in the corporation, exactly. It's a good one.
So yeah, I think it's a really good, like, we're reverse engineering the reality, how we got here, you know, like to branch, like have a potential of branching out from accepting it. That's why I sort of thought it was a good global narrative theme, because I'm a bit across sort of the 80s stuff with like that era of people and stuff, and yeah, it's just, you know, that's what I felt. It was a good topic. Like, holy shit, I have accepted it is, and people around me accepted it isn't, but I embrace it. Why do I have to accommodate people that don't, you know? I don't have to define myself by others.
That's right. Because if you allow yourself to be defined by others, you're still a conformist.
You think you're free, but you're not. You know, you're accommodating because all those things. So I just thought it was a good end. Like, obviously there were big efforts and things that really cemented how we don't accept it over time. You know, it was a big effort, part of the algorithm, no doubt, you know.
Alrighty.
So, while we're waiting for your...
What is today's date? Today's date is 7th of August, 2019.
Yes. Well, it's the 6th still for me.
Yeah. Well, talking about the world.
Yes, the world of we're about to get a whole bunch of really solar flares.
Well, I think there's a lot of instability in the economy aspects of the world, and the pot is boiling hotter for the humanity.
Well, humanity is just the frogs in the boiling pot.
Absolutely. And the temperature's rising a little bit in certain regions. So your whole thing for many years has been the marching on the streets, and France, Paris has been blacked out. Sort of, there's not a lot of communication what's going on over there, and now Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So areas of the world where, say, property values are very high. And there's a lot of, say, I've seen today that the New Zealand dollar dropped their interest rates by 0.5%, which was out of the blue after the US did it, and Australia has dropped it last 2 months. So Australia, the government has actually given a stimulus to every person, like a cash stimulus, because so there's an effort to stimulate consumption and GDP and all that sort of stuff. So what you're saying is that there's a galactic solar system sort of like foundational sub-layer going on potentially that's triggering a lot.
No, more like individuals. The next coming 2 months are going to be full of very unique solar flares that are going to challenge us electromagnetically. Human beings. You've just used the IMRS. What do you think is going to happen when we start adding a lot more bioelectrical magnetic frequencies to our atmosphere?
Well, even by you just saying that, it feels like instinctively I got onto that, which I do things. I get very proactive. I don't know the answer for it, but I just know there's a potential in me to do something. So I went and I was very fortunate to hire one of Andrew's PEMF devices by a lady that offers them here in Adelaide, and I cooked myself for 2 weeks. That's what I do it, and it's really changed me. I mean, you can share how I might have changed, mate, by doing that.
Well, you got pulsed electromagnetic therapy, which works at the Schumann resonance, which is the background magnetic frequency of Earth. PMF was originally developed in the 1960s for the astronauts going to the moon. They discovered that astronauts in space would have this weird sickness, mental, physical, and emotional, come over them. And what they determined, it was the background magnetic radiation of Earth that kept people stable. So they started creating PEMF therapy for the astronauts, which kept them safe and healthy up there. And now it's been reapplied to a medical scenario, but you don't need a doctor's license to run these things. They're just hit a button and push. You push a button and wait, and let the person absorb the frequencies. Yeah.
So I've always known that there's a connection for being in the human DNA to Earth, and you've said on a greater scale that a lot of beings out there that they don't have a celestial being in their ship and stuff like that. So that's actually been a massive detrimental to their species. So they're actually looking for our DNA. So because Earth is special, but I don't want to get into that chat because that's a whole big subject which has been covered and you can cover more. But yeah, I'll say, getting back to me and why I probably choose that is obviously I do a lot of Andrew's content and stuff, and one of the big things that you talked about that I've heard is that it's about increasing the density of light in you. So for me, it's one thing I have been trying to do, like increase the ability to hold the volume of light in my body, which metaphorically weathers the storm, in my opinion, if you're able to do that. So I feel very different. I feel very but emotionally very strong. Everything's very clear. It's like I get it. I get the gap. I'm not leaving a gap in my energy field of it, thought, belief, or emotion. I'm just like quite rock solid. I'm still maybe a little bit grounded from doing it so much, but it was an opportunity to really accelerate, I felt. So I was grateful for the experience, and I'm going to have a break from it. But yeah, it's interesting. So you're talking solar flares, and there's an opportunity to absorb more light. And
the background magnetic frequency of Earth is going to be up in amplitude. Its frequencies are going to be highly affected. That means certain consciousness wavelengths will be highly accentuated.
Yes, I get it. So dream state, probably interesting dream potentials. And one of the things
not just that. There'll be moments where realities will have non-paradoxal crossovers.
Interesting.
Yes, so I use those words specifically, non-paradoxal crossovers.
I'm actually processing what that might be right now. Yeah. Because the other thing that solar activity does, it brings out the unresolved in people as well.
Especially involved in their unknowingness.
Yeah. And it's got to be said that the majority of people are reactive to healing. They wait for crisis. They don't get proactive and see a potential. So it's adding some chili to the pot of humanity.
That's right. Or in other words, if you're chefing stuff, if you have dried beans and you don't soak the beans overnight or for a significant period of time, your chili will create a gaseous effect in your eater for the next 2.5 days. So let's just say there's no soaked beans coming into these solar flares.
Yeah. So my advice is observe your emotional state and don't let it drive you, and you're not responsible for another's emotional state. If you've been like a proactive example for humanity and people haven't chosen to heal, then you're not responsible for them, and especially if you're a practitioner out there.
So the thing is, why do people get lost into feeling responsible for their brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I had this chat to a person here about it, and Australia in particular, it's in our culture, it's where, and I'm not sure where it comes from, or I probably won't be able to explain it too well right now, but there's a subconscious layer that we're responsible for the emotional state of others, and it's all about sort of bubble wrapping everyone to not feel emotion, especially traumatic.
I like that.
Yeah.
Bubble wrap, not feel emotion.
Yeah, when actually experiencing emotion, especially what you talk about, somatic releases, which are, crying releases, where the water you release is structured with the trauma. Think about it, how the body is genius,
The water that Earth is absorbing in the North and the South Poles that are becoming part of our collective consciousness, uncollective weather patterns, is highly charged particles that's enabling the new forms of water that's being produced as ice and snow and rain.
Mm.
So yes, we are having massive programmed waters coming in too.
Yeah, there's been extensive heat as well. And we've actually been quite dry down here, but I know the Northern Hemisphere, like us 6 months ago, we had 47, 48 degrees Celsius in January. It's crazy. And we had 40 plus degree Celsius days in January, which was over 110.
Yeah.
So, it's pretty interesting. So this is coming in the next few months, you say. Is it bleeding through now?
It starts on the Lions Gate, 8/8/2019.
Well, I've released that short clip and put it in a few things about doing mass meditations with haunted people. So you do mass group sort of meditation things, and then there might be people that are messed up in it. So yeah, it's interesting.
As of yesterday, there were no solar flares. As of yesterday, there were no solar spots, and as of today, there were 11. And I've been telling people for the last 2 days that it's going to take off because I got my internal warning.
And you're actually taking a much needed back down as well,
Yeah.
like you've actually closed down sessions because you need a break, and plus you've given yourself a gap,
Well, I've got content too. So people out there, this is one of these content moments. Talk to the future audience. As we're waiting for the computer to get out of blue screen of death mode.
Yeah. And it's not.
And it's
So-
not.
So this is all Microsoft's fault. We'll blame Microsoft. We'll be the victim. So we're going to tell truth because their computer crashed on me.
What kind of karma Microsoft create to go into everyone's home and create a situation where they're constantly having computers are breaking down? What sort of dicks were they in the past? Were they Napoleon or something?
Yeah, probably, mate. Probably worse.
Genghis Khan, fucking evil people.
Well, I mean, one of the things I have on the list is actually asking about history that's been lost. And my guess is the worst of the worst has never been recorded because they've eliminated anyone that would talk about them, you know?
Well, the worst of the worst were the ones who were the victors who rewrote history.
Yes. So we don't know what they've done, you know?
Exactly. We have no idea what they've done.
So, yeah. So you asked me about what I see in the world. I see constant theme is people avoiding their stuff, mate. And then there's a reflection of a relief of that unresolved in the reality that prompts people to want to, gives them an opportunity to sort of look at themselves rather than like materialism, consumerism, comforts, and avoiding stuff. So
that's been going on avoidance has been going on for a long time.
It's a I don't know. How can I describe it? It's a fundamental of the reality with humanity. You know?
It's taught. It's taught to avoid those things that don't make you emotionally comfortable.
Yeah. So I don't know, mate. You talk about the mystical and stuff like that and development and you know, you invest a certain amount of time into understanding awareness and yourself and trauma and say look at exploring modalities and experiencing healing and stuff, and it's all about being clear and body feeling good and stuff like that. And if something pops up in your body and stuff, try and focus on the source of it, but it might actually be you just being, you know, dehydrated and all those sort of things. So I feel very good in myself and strong, and that I don't know, mate. To me, this last 9-12 months or so, it's about, for myself, it's about owning what I'm aware of and accepting that I am pretty good in a humble way. I've earned the ability to say be an elder and stuff, and when I look around, there aren't that many people that actually are able to contemplate, say, what I've learned, and quite a few of the people I know. And
right.
The difference is that I've accepted that, and I'm strong in what I know, and I'm not catering for what, in a polite sense, the ignorance of people, because they don't have a component that wants to develop and know. So I don't have to cater for that sort of level of individual. And I'll just be my truth, and I'll respect their boundaries, and I won't force it, but I'm not going to accommodate it either, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then it comes down to the separation of densities. It's like, do I need to accommodate these people, and what does it serve, and why do I need to? And if they're comfortable where they're at, and to me, it's a massive investment in awareness, you know? It's a commitment to my life. And it's valuable to me. So, and then having to accommodate what I know is not true and living lifestyles that don't align with that, that's a density. And it's been tough, and a lot of people cater for that. And perhaps time it's to let a few people go, just see what happens, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Strange times we live in. We must learn to let go and yet still have eternal patience.
Yeah, I mean, I admire you, mate. You've been knowing this since 9 years old. And, yeah. Yeah, I still I still also, another fundamental I've integrated is what you said about there's been 500 trillion attempt to get to here now, right?
Yep.
Like the resistance-free Earth and stuff. And out of that, the 7.3 billion here, and then out of that, maybe several thousand or million that are conscious explorers, you know? And I'm one of them, and I value that, how precious it is. And I operate in awareness of our ancient future, that when they look back and us look back at now what we did, I'm proud of myself for how I operated in this reality. You know what I mean? Like it matters now for all time. So it's about honoring that and not worrying about what other people think. You know, it's time. Because I'm very fortunate. I have a couple of really strong healers that I call them tricksters and stuff, but they don't give a shit. You know, they're just like so solid in themselves. They don't give a flying F what other people think, and they're just holding themselves, but they don't. Yeah, it's very interesting how they operate, but they're so solid, and that solidness in themselves makes them resilient to a lot of stuff, and it's taken me a long time to really get to that point, and I feel it now. So, you do it very subtly, though.
That's because I've had to learn at a very young age how to save my energy and who to argue with and who not to, and at times get lost in the argument because it's a close friend or family member or whatever it is. If you don't adhere to their reality, they get upset.
Yeah, and then you want...
Right.
And then the empathic aspects kick in, and you want to cater for them, and that's where I was saying the bubble wrapping people's emotion, because a lot of people are empathic, but they get drawn into conditioning that they're responsible for others' states, and it's not. You let them have a tantrum, time them out, you know, or suggest, look, you got this issue, you know, it's in your gut, I can feel it, or whatever, you know. But you do it in a different way. It's like, it's funny. I mean, you'll know that I talk to Andrew a lot and I spend a lot of time with him, but as I develop stuff, it's like an enigma. It's like, wow, I've learnt this, and then I tune in and it's like, oh, you must have learned about 11 years old. And there's a layer that's just there, you know?
Well, there was a lot of learning at a young age and then relearning and reinterpreted as I got older, and my perspective of humanity changed. Okay? That's the key to understanding. I kept having to relook at some of the ways I saw things because I learned how reality, the false reality worked.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't a false reality at the moment that I was choosing and selecting. It's a real reality. Real reality. That has its own
thing. That is one thing. It's recalibrating to what you come to understand. You have to recalibrate yourself to it all. So, and that's an energetic investment. And if most people, what I feel, are down to 30% of their life force actually changing their perceptions of reality and integrating new data, it's very costly energetically, and most people just don't have it. They're just trying to not get dis-ease or, you know, like severe illness in their bodies.
Right. Because they find themselves trapped. Trapped in such a way they don't know how to get out. Or even worse, in an enlightenment trap that the ego has them forever being fed.
But I'm really respectful of, I'm not critical of humanity. I fundamentally appreciate how the absence of life force is a takes a lot just to exist, you know. So but then it's like you as a teacher or whatever, you can say, look, you know, go try this Reiki healer. Your body's like, you need gas in your car tank, you know. Go fill out with a Reiki healer and see how you feel, and then people get a relief, but they don't realize that relief is just getting back to normal.
All right, so whenever there's a somatic release, let me get out real quick. Whenever there's a somatic release and they don't do the true trauma removal, you get the massive avoidance.
Yeah, the shadow kicks in, the ego kicks in to defend themselves.
Right. And when the ego is continuously fed, it's a never-ending vicious cycle.
Mm.
It's just a never-ending cycle of viciousness.
Yeah.
And the enlightenment trap. People think, oh, I'm at my top notch. No, you're barely out of survival mode, and that's where the ego wants you. Still looking to it. Still looking to it for reference.
Yeah, like
as long as you're to the ego for reference, you're not present. You're not an I am self.
Like a lot of people, their first mystical experience might be a Kundalini activation in their body, and they feel hugely energized. And
right.
That's
or a dream or a nightmare. I mean, some mystical experiences are scary because people don't get what's going on.
Yeah. A lot of people are in insane asylums because they're freaked out.
Right.
Because they can't perceive the mystical that they're having, and it challenges their reality so much it shatters them.
Yep.
And a lot of people find it messed up energetically and negative experiences, but it's one aspect of having a mystical that freaks them out,
Right. And most of them, and I've said this many times, 95% of all hauntings are created by people themselves. They're self-haunted.
Mm.
So 5% that remain are real ghosts.
Mm.
And you dehaunt your self-created ghosts very similar to full-on ghosts because they're electromagnetic signature frequency that's draining energy force from you.
Okay. I've got something really good. You've triggered something in me, all right?
All right.
And because I've been doing a lot of videos and stuff and trying to create content. My computer broke, so I'm trying to play catch up and stuff like that. But I've sort of been reset in creating content as well. So my perception is different as well, which is it's probably much needed. And it was a cool call with a guy by the name of Jake. He's been a listener for quite a while. He's a young guy from England, and I met him quickly at your 2016 event. And a lot of people that are familiar listeners might be familiar with him, and if you heard his voice, you'd know it. And he had a really cool conversation about his ego with you, all right? And this is something you can probably get into a lot more detail with. And it was really cool for me because he had a choice of going the shaman path, or he had a music sort of university sort of course offered to him that he was debating about choosing to explore. And what you said to him, you were talking about the ego and the shadow self and stuff like that kicking in. And what you eventually got to in this call with him was that potentially his ego had actually created the music course, which is probably very, very expensive. And he was unemployed at the time and didn't have an income. And he was thinking about doing shamanism and, say, music sort of healing, like with Tibetan bowls and stuff like that. And the ego created the negative potential in his life. And I actually found that really interesting, that the ego could actually manifest stuff because of our state, and we are co-creators. So there was an outlet.
Those are called false synchronicities, and that's how the ego creates a self-fulfilling prophecy in awareness and unawareness to you. So it's a very common ego technique to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it in my family and stuff. Like, for instance, we talk, and I'm not going to judge them or anything like that, because I do grid work and I do big stuff, and one of the avenues I've had to actually negate is the influence of people around me. And I didn't realize it. I thought it was just me I'd be a target, but then I realized people around me could be a target. And so I've had this pulse electromagnetic device, and say I've had it and I've known potential issues and stuff, and scenarios in their world have been created that have worked them to the ground and too tired to come and see me and stuff like that. And I know it's a manifestation of sort of things like that to prevent healing in people around me. So I took on board that call with Jake, and I see it as a pattern now, because say today the first global narrative show was released, and say as an individual, the ego gets played with, but then the individuals are components that make up humanity, and then the co-creative aspects of the whole humanity is used to sort of create your reality as well. So it's a very interesting avenue that the ego can be played to actually co-create with individual life to prevent their path, you know. And that was a huge concept for me to actually take on board. I was processing it a lot recently. So is there more that you can go into, mate?
So yes, the ego has many tools, many ways of getting you to believe its line of propaganda versus your own internal knowingness journey. So many people find it very easy to let other parts of themselves make decisions, especially when the unknown is potentially there, and the ego wants to be in control all the time, and therefore it's going to create scenarios that are self-fulfilling prophecy things that, oh, you didn't realize that your subconscious had been making you think about particular things, and the next thing you know, you go by a store that you've been by before, but it's been a couple of years, and they have a sale on something that you want, and it works you into an gratification. Oh, it must be perfect synchronicity.
Because there is an interesting documentary that was released on Netflix called The Great Hack, and it was about basically Cambridge Analytica and stuff like that, and how data is sort of used. I haven't looked at it all right, but and this is to challenge the narrative sort of perspective on many things, because what they were talking about is how the advertising pops up, and it's like exactly what you're thinking about. And the guy that's arguing the case of the hacking,
Your computer.
the guy that was arguing the case of the hacking is saying the algorithms are so good, you know, couldn't possibly be a beyond 3D 5 sense potential that's tuning into you. You know what I mean? It's got to be sort of the algorithms of the mechanics of how it all works is working. You know what I mean? It's not something that goes beyond what the narrative is willing to accept, you know?
Mm-hmm. I got it.
But say what you're saying is that the ego's being tuned into it potentially as well, is it? And encouraged?
Yes, because it can be easily, the ego can be easily manipulated by subtle passive advertising.
But say us as an individual variable, can a variable of us be what the ego is sort of maintaining within ourselves that can be tuned into separately of the whole individual and then played with to create?
Yes. Yes. And more than that.
Interesting. But the thing that comes back to is knowing yourself. So like being aware of your ego and resolving your traumas and stuff like that, the majority of people really don't go in like to really explore and stuff. Like people do healing, but they touch on their surface and stuff. Like say for me, I remember the very first time I got serious about healing, and it was interesting, June 2011. So it was when all the timelines, you said, Form 1. So that's when I started doing my individual healing. And I went for 4 sessions for one particular issue, and it was about my father leaving and stuff like that. It took 4 sessions to actually get some resolution for that one particular issue. And I don't know many people that are that serious about healing. They want relief from how they're feeling and get back to some sort of level of normality, but they don't really go to the source of the issue and keep going and what's under that, you know? And it's hard to explain to people. It's like...
There's things there they don't want to face.
Absolutely. It's like a massive rite of passage, and I appreciate it because it's huge for people to actually get on the other side of. And
right.
but yeah, I really found that conversation with Jake very interesting because then I recalibrated myself. It's like things that are happening and stuff, and you know, staying focused on the target sort of development can be very challenging, you know. And then you don't have many allies and stuff, and you're interacting with all these people.
Because it requires your vigilance and your vigilance alone.
Yeah, and I mean a lot of people in relationships and they've got children and stuff like that, and really focusing on yourself. I was fortunate where I could eliminate a lot and just be isolated in many respects and just focus on me, and then rebuild myself from that. I think a lot of people in commitments and stuff, which make it very tough as well, you know.
Mm-hmm. Commitments become attachments after a while. Attachments that we just can't ignore either.
Yeah. A lot of people in relationships they probably should have not been in, you know. Having this conversation yesterday. My computer's back up now. You want to keep talking?
Yeah, just give me a second here. I gotta turn my computer back on and just... All right. 1 second. All right. Let me stop this recording, or do you want me to keep it going?
We can start again another time if you want. This is your relaxed time, mate.
Well, how about I'll set it up and I'll just say we've been hanging out because you're having a break, and then you gave me an update of something that's going on.
So today is the Lion's Gate. Did you feel any Lion's Gate energies?
Last night, yeah.
What did you feel?
I use the term amped up, and for myself, I've had a chat to Andrew in the last couple of weeks. I actually hired one of the PEMF Swiss Biotic pulse and electromagnetic frequency healing devices. So I've done 2 weeks of pretty serious healing and doing sessions for close friends and allies and stuff. And so I've done an exponential level of healing for myself in a short time, which to me, say that opportunity for the mat came up, I saw it as a potential for me, and that's the only variable I use. But say it's gotten me prepared for this on a subconscious level. My body was, at a new level that I've never experienced. So one of the things I've listened to with doing going through a lot of the readings to make classic callers to the form shows is that you've talked to a few people over the years that just have been a common theme for me is about setting yourself up to absorb more light, like increase the density of light in your DNA skin suit.
So you produce more light.
Yeah. So with me, say I took on board that potential of increasing the density of light in my body, I was sort of seeing the mat as a chance to use a tool that I don't usually have to align that with me. So I feel like my body has changed quite a lot over the 9 months, but this is, I'd say even in March, it's August now. In March, I got triggered to start doing broth soups at night. So after I go to the gym and getting extreme nutrition density and things like that. And it felt like my body was going through a transformation over many months. And right now I feel like I'm in, personally, my strongest physically and mentally. Just a lot of doubt, if I had doubt and all that, has been removed. So right now I feel extremely strong. So I've actually trying to calibrate the increased energy And I can handle a lot of energy, but I felt like I've been off the scale, and it's a new variable for me. And so right now I feel I'm in my zone, if that makes sense. That's like a condensing of 6 months sort of thing, plus recent sort of opportunities that I make the most of, and being proactive on my healing overall and stuff. So I feel all that initiative has gotten me ready for now, perhaps.
Like I said, preparation depicts the execution every time. Preparation depicts the execution of what goes on for each person at each phase of their potentialities.
Yeah. I don't aim for a target, say this date or anything like that. I just see all the individual components of healing as a potential. And am I not being like lazy or anything, but do I have an opportunity to do this? And is there any reason why I shouldn't? And so if it's money, it's like, if I've got a bit of cash, then I'll do it, you know? Or if a healer is available, because, you know, Andrew, you're so consistent, mate. You're available. It's like you're a like spiritual beefcake that you can just maintain yourself. But a lot of high-end healers, they really struggle to be available, you know? So to me, when a healer is up for it, like one of my healers in my city last year, I was doing a lot of healing. She's a Reiki master and she's awesome, but she's had a baby, so she's not available. So to me, when someone is available, it's an opportunity as well, because stability is an interesting thing with the very, you know, talented healers as well. It's not easy.
Right. The stability is hard for them because the challenges that they face with stability means they must be constantly looking at what is they're afraid and they're unknown.
Absolutely.
And not be paranoid, because if you develop paranoia, you've already lost the game.
Yeah. It's tough.
There's no such thing as healthy paranoia. There is such thing as dedicated vigilance.
Yeah. I feel, so the shift in me, the doubt in my perception have really gone. Like, I'm owning my eldership and say, I take responsibility for all the investment I've made into Andrew's data that I've taken on board, because the patterns become very obvious. And to me, I'm not egotistic, but I've accepted that, you know, maybe I'm in a small percent that really gets it. So I own that, and it's not overpowering other people, but I just get the gaps that people haven't explored and stuff. And it's not I feel any different, but it's just obvious. The obviousness is so it's there, you know.
Mm-hmm. So this consistency, you and I have talked about it before. I'm trying to give it some more definition, because again, you were my first producer at Rev Radio. So what is the experience of consistency you've seen?
To me, it comes down to mastering yourself and doing all the thoroughness in me. So say you talk about colonics, and I keep hearing about it. It took me many years to go and do it, and it's not an easy thing to approach first off, because it's quite invasive and stuff and that. But to me, a lot of people they get to that point and they can't do it. You know, just an example, and it's nothing wrong with that, but it's, say if you don't eliminate, say, colonics as a potential, and you don't really clean out the lining of your colon, there's potential for being interfered with, like you've got a gap. And right. so to me, you've just got to really own the thoroughness and stuff like that. And if you leave gaps in those potentials, and so you might have a trauma that you've subconsciously blocked, and it's in your colon and stuff, and you're a high-end healer. The thing is, you come around high-end people and you're not really used to it, and they trigger the shit in you, and you don't know it because you're so unprepared for it. And I know this with Andrew, he makes it seem pretty easy, and you listen to my linguistics around him and stuff, and maybe I take over and maybe I say things like and stuff, but that's how good he is. He makes you reveal all your shit, all your imperfections and stuff, and I'm happy to reveal my imperfections, because it's just a teaching, you know, like you see what's wrong with me, that's cool, try and be better, you know, like just I'm actually putting it out there to give you a gap to see what's going on, and you make it actually seem very easy. That's what it is. It's effortless, but it's effortless because you've done so much, mate. Like, to be able to handle doing shows, like, consistently, 200 shows a year plus, you know, for many years, and thousands of people seeking readings, and, you know, like, you've had a time off now, like, because you've done a whole heap of sessions, but, like, say if you're a advanced practitioner like yourself, the key is to be an anchor for people when they're ready in their own time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's...
Without any personal judgment against yourself is where you're at with a number of students, followers, buyers, whatever it is. You can't have any judgments about that.
Yeah. It's like, see, for me, right, I mentioned I hired this PMF device, and to go from being a client to being a practitioner is a massive jump.
Right.
You like to be observing of practitioners and be really critical of them. Well, maybe you need to step up and be a practitioner to know how hard it is to hold space with all the stuff going on around. Like, say, mothers and stuff, it's massive. It's really impressive, and I'm enormously supportive of practitioners because I see, you know, it's not a battle, but it's everyone goes through their own stuff. But the difference is a practitioner actually is able to manage their own stuff, but also be professional. And I mean, I've been an IT engineer and consultant, and I dealt with clients, and that was one of the first things I picked up about you, mate, your professionalism. It's,
thank you.
In the spiritual sense, not many people really get that, because when you deal with client services, like I came through Burger King and they drilled client service in you, which was a really foundational thing for me. And then I went into IT, and the thing about me, the clients love me because I could relate to them. I'm their C3PO, like here. And but yeah, the professionalism of being able to deal with your stuff and not bring it in as baggage to a healing, you know, to be able to separate yourself, plus observe the full vista of the individual that you're dealing with without your personal issues. That's a real massive thing, and you just do it so well. You, like, even like me, I know what's going on, and you're just ready for the individual, and you're totally maxed out, 100% focused on that individual whenever they come, and it's effortless, mate. I know a lot of people don't get that.
It seems effortless. In the moment, it's effortless. No, hold on, let me redefine that. There are times it's not effortless based off of how tired I am. Like, there are times that I've had to do shows where, you know, I did CEO stuff in the morning, sessions in the before and after lunch, recordings in the afternoon, or a live radio show in the evening. That was a really common Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday for me for many years. Those were some tiring days, and there was effort there. And then there were times that it was completely effort because the subject matter was so needed at the time.
Yeah.
Subject matter was so needed at the time. And then when I'm in those real powerful zones, when I say effortless, I mean effortless. It's not looking for thoughts or structures. It is, the language is pre-assembled in there, is what I call the precognitive workforce. Mm. Mm. So many me's have been developing these moments of now, not influencing my free will to get to this point, because I can follow lines of potential and activate and actualize those potentials even before they're done. Mm. So the right choices are there, the patience, the commitment, the courage, it's all backed up within me from the work that I've done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my metaphor, what I was sort of saying is, so I see potential in a healer. Like, say, if it's like, say, for instance, I'm looking at CST, seriously, I haven't actually explored it with Andrew, and it's lining up to be a perfect time for me, and I found the healer. So to me right now, that's a potential. And I want to realize that potential in me, because what does it reveal on the other side of exploring it? I like that as a variable because I can control it. It's not an unknown. And I look forward to that other side of integrating that healing.
And so to me, investing money in a healer is a absolutely, I don't know how to describe it. I've had so many confirmations I'm doing healing and just feeling normal. I just want to feel the most normal I can, you know. I don't want to have aches or pains or, you know, spots in my calves because I walk 10 or 15 Ks a day that are really aching. I like to be clear and then my neutrality and all the, like the spinning of plates sort of thing is I'm mastering myself, you know?
That's right. Mastering yourself.
Because then you're not playing catch up into the reality. You've got a foundation, and then you can sort of serve rather than react to your life, you know?
Yep.
So we're on the Lions Gate, the 8th of August 2019, and you gave me a pop-up yesterday having a chat that something was up.
Yes, the solar flares have begun. So for the next 2.5 months to 3 months, we're going to be having very significant, how do I put it? I don't want to say the common cliche, variances in the dream world. As the amount of solar flares comes, and those that are prepared, precognitively prepared for solar flares, will have rapid advances in their spiritual experiences. Those that are not precognitive prepared, but just regular prepared, they're going to discover that many, many people around them are going to be attracted to them as an energetic thing, thinking they have an energy the people don't have. So high energy people and choice-based consciousness people in the mid to high range, or the basic practitioner, are going to have lots of people attracted to them, and they're going to be dirtying your energy field over and over again. So you won't be able to reach deeper into the dream weave, as these many solar flares that are coming are going to be blending dream worlds that have had barriers and separations in them for tens of thousands of years. You know, think of it like a big giant energetic world that has boundaries and barriers and borders, and all of a sudden those original boundaries, barriers, and borders no longer apply. Other realms and other aspects of the astral world will be able to get into a dreaming frequency, which means a lot of the hell realms are going to have major issues about keeping souls trapped in there, because lots of visitors are going to be coming to their spaces, and they're going to be re-engineering the realm.
So like soul shards that might be trapped or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I have had a consistent theme of soul shard sort of healers and stuff. So I've actually in the process of making a second show about soul shards, which will be interesting. But yeah, I get it. So it'll be moths to the flame of the unresolved.
Yes, so those that are in the practitioner format and knowing that these energies are going to be attracted to you, how do you avoid it and yet deal with it at the same time? It's the ever-evolving enigma and conundrum of being an ever-awakened person in a modern world, where the modern world's constantly attracting the mediocre factor to you that's using the dirty energy underwear.
Yeah, this is, I guess, perhaps in your language, not be a martyr for the clients or the individuals. This is where you actually step back and allow them to have their experience and not get entangled. And like as a healer and stuff, you don't need to resolve everything with an individual in that one session or whatever, you know, that one interaction. It's not.
What I'm referring to is the amount of sessions are going to go through the roof that clients, that practitioners are having. And many of them are going to be there, how to put it, to bog the practitioner down.
Yeah. Trolls.
Okay?
Like client trolls.
Yeah, but they're not necessarily in the... Yeah, but it's a good way to put it. They're just energetic trolls in the dream world. So, you know, where you maybe used to be able to handle 10 clients a month, you might only be able to handle 2.
Yeah.
Okay?
So the challenge per client might be escalated quite a bit, and you're not aware of it because it's in the unseen world as well.
Correct. It's because the dream worlds are being charged with solar particles at the highest layers now. And it used to be that those particles were rapidly diffused via weather control technology and a variety of other technologies that were in the upper atmosphere. Many of those fundamental rules that created them no longer function here. Certain aspects of the technology's physics have been fundamentally altered.
Is this related to, like, say, the update we did last year about the solar system and the crossing the galactic central plane?
Yes. You're in such a higher density space, the physics are different now.
Yeah.
Temporal mechanics are different too. So their time travel based prediction models no longer have the same validity in this quadrant of space.
Interesting.
Right. Now, the dreaming space is a physical space too. Have you ever had a dream that you woke up from and swear to God it felt real, every aspect to it?
Yeah. My dreaming isn't quite as tense as a lot of people, but I'm actually hearing that that's the case at the moment with a lot of people. They're not confused, but it's so intense a dreaming experience that they question reality and they're trying to reflect on their dream because it's so vivid in their recall and stuff. And
there'll be those that begin to have they wake up from a dream that they woke up from a dream that both were real. Okay? So it's going to be two layers of feeling it real, like an inception concept.
Yeah.
Okay? Now let me explain why. The eighth color of time, or this new density of frequency that's in this galactic space that we've entered through from crossing of the galactic central plane, that energy, how do I put it? It has another vector factor of movement to it. Like, it can operate in consciousness and reality at the same time and not be consciousness and reality at the same time. It's hard to describe. It has an experiential value to it that has a color, that has music and sound, that has dimensions within it. Right.
So then it's up to the individual to be a match of whatever infinite is offered.
You're already a match of it before it. If you're experiencing the eighth color of time, you were already a match before it.
Yeah. So it's like, I'll use my simple terms, the density of volume of stuff in the light is increased, perhaps.
Yes, which changes the algorithms of interaction. It's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, I'm trying to process this in real time.
Right.
I'm
That's
visualizing it. But say people have codes in their DNA, would they be getting...
that are there to accept the eighth color of time once you cross the galactic central plane. Because your DNA does have spatial awareness to it in the galaxy and the universe.
So what I was going to say also, there was also a big but, because we're co-creators as well. So despite there's being increased opportunity, there's also increased opportunity for creation as well.
Yes. All forms of creation.
Good and bad, potentially.
And unheard of so far, yes.
Yeah. So the amp up of people is their truth. And we all contribute to the reality. So then there's the individual experience and the seen and unseen collective contribution of that as well. So, I mean, one thing you've said for many years is, like, until we see marching on the streets, nothing's going to happen. And there has been an increase of that, whether it's organic or it's been interfered with on a war level, because there is war going on, which it's not weapons and blowing up people, but there is a war going on right now, so it's quite interesting.
Many wars going on right now. There's many wars going on right now. See, you were just saying before that you believe there are more marching than there was in 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And I beg to differ. I think it's about equal.
Okay.
Because Obama was 08 to 12, or 12 to 16, whatever it was.
8 to
He was
16.
8 years. Yeah, he was in 8 years, and there was more marching in the beginning than there was now. Yes, France was big marches, but it didn't last that long.
Okay. And Hong Kong as well.
But Hong Kong marches every year. It's
True.
like a tradition.
Yeah.
Okay? And you can go back and look, and they're marching every year, and sometimes the numbers are big, and sometimes the numbers are small.
Yeah. I have done recordings with you where they were. I think 2016 there was big marching.
Big marches. So, you see, you have to understand the history of the late 60s and 70s when it came down to a marching culture. It was, there are 50 states, and each state has a capital, but imagine if the capital and the three main cities in every state, there were 500,000 people marching every day, 7 days a week for years in a row.
Mhm.
Okay?
Yeah.
It wasn't all the same people in the crowd, but it was that much big turnover. And that was before the internet, and that was dial-up phone and newspaper.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Has communication networks like cell phone taken out the interpersonal communication that allows massing to the people to come together? Absolutely it has. Has it opened up new ways? Sure, but people still have to do with the fear of going to an event. Okay?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it was a bit staged. It felt like a bit. I mean, it's not really staged, but there was deliberate seeding of fears in the Hong Kong region. I get what you mean.
Right, but there's also natural people that are going out to find their voice in marching, and that's what marching is about in this particular era, finding a voice and making sure that voice is heard. But once the voice has to have leadership, it falls apart.
Mm.
Okay? It falls apart.
Yeah.
That's what happened to, Occupy Wall Street. As soon as they say, what do you want? And leaders had to come forward, it fell apart.
Mm.
So for marching to get out there and there has to literally be management, high-level management of it. And how's high-level management going to be created without the different intelligence agencies going, hey, what's going on over here?
Okay, so I got a different language for it. So
Okay.
say maybe the marching that, say, I've sort of perceived is within the narrative itself, the global narrative sort of structure. It's not something external to that. It's still being run by, or not run by, but certain aspects of its awareness are still defined by the global narrative sort of structures, say social media and stuff like that. And it's maybe that's sort of enough to sort of say it's in our awareness for a reason.
That's right.
So getting back to this increased solar activity that has a potential for us. Are there aspects that are being affected that we're not aware of that are contributing to our reality at the moment?
Say that again.
Are there aspects of our realm, Earth and stuff, that are being affected by the energies, increased energies, that we're not really aware of? Say Hollow Earth and stuff like that, and the resolution of karma, those sort of things.
Well, for every time I say that humanity is being affected by the dream world of the new solar particles and galactic particles coming in, the Hollow Earth is affected at fourfold greater.
Mm.
And some scenarios 20-fold greater, depending on how old they are. because these particles, these eighth color particles, have charged time particles to them that can rapidly destabilize a algorithm that's moving through numerical time counted by collectives and uncollectives.
So say I sort of see the eighth color potential as a line that we, if we're like a chart, that we can reach, and it's a potential that's above us. If I use that sort of language, we're an X and Y axis, and there's a line that's above us that we can reach if we individually, say, resolve ourselves, heal, and get on top of our bodies and beliefs and all those sort of things. So there's a potential to be in a match for, say, the eighth color in each of us, but it's up to us each individually, no matter what scale, whether it's Hollow Earth and all that, to actually work on ourselves to be there.
Interact with it.
Yeah. And then to maintain stamina with it.
Endurance and stamina through your daily practice of connecting to it as a new charged particle of time.
And I'll bring up one thing that you mentioned to me maybe a few weeks ago. You felt you were talking about there's a pulse going back through time of waves and stuff. Is this sort of related to that, or this is something else? Certain people were being affected by a ripple backwards in time of an event or potential or something.
So that's referring to what's going on with the standing waves in time, or the paradoxes suddenly having resolution to themselves, which are closing down other realms that created, I don't know how to describe it, other paradoxes that stop people from uncreating and creating. It's like large dead man switch realms were shut down.
They were taking energy and resources and effort that have been returned, so to speak, so we're getting a boost, maybe.
Those realms were cut down, which then changes the way beings of consciousness who are weaving their way through time, it begins to unweave certain dense beings who are traveling linearly as an infinite being.
I'm thinking of trying to just visualize this in images, and it's going to be a bit tough.
Well, think of a thickly woven carpet, and an energy being that's following linear time that has one long line, but it's woven through the carpet. There are certain aspects of the carpet that it moves around. Well, the fabric of the carpet is changed, or the line that is the original being, linear being of one, is broken up. So it's no longer a linear being of time.
So basically this is separate. That ripple back in time thing is separate to what's going on now. That's basically what you're saying. That's cool.
It's something that's been going on since 2008. This is why the Mandela effects are starting to suddenly become popularized.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll continue to get more and more of these spikes of consciousness, opportunities for people to grow and advance internally. So
maybe switching to a different sort of aspect of this conversation. So if you're someone that's been into this stuff for a while and you're developing and there is in the community a perception of other people that don't do their work and stuff like that, and because we are unity consciousness is one thing, and a lot of people are asleep and in the disunity aspects of that. Would this sort of Lionsgate sort of solar activity have an effect on that sort of aspect of society?
It will have an effect on every aspect of society, seen and unseen.
Yeah.
Anything that dreams, it will have an effect on it. Now, if those beings remember their dreams, that's different. There are many people who don't remember their dreams at all because they're disconnected from the dream world.
Yes.
Will solar flares give opportunities to remember more dreams? Yes. But you still have to do some due diligence to clear yourself before you go to sleep.
Mm. Yeah, the majority of people, even in the audience, they don't really
comprehend why it's so important.
Yeah.
They know they should be doing it, but doing it more than 8 or 10 times in a row become a challenge for them.
Yeah, integrating the revocations in a consistent manner in their lives and stuff. It's not a once or two or 3 or 5 time thing. It's the reality shifting all the time. You've got to be a match to it. So they're a tool to actually recalibrate to the shifts in frequency, and it's constant. That's where I'd say for me, I know I get everything shifts all the time, and to be a match to it, you've got to be disciplined, and it's not a matter of just having 1 or 2 healings here and there and thinking you're healed. It's like the shifts happen, and it's like the game is reset, and you might have 5 healings you need to do in that range of that new frequency.
Or a whole bunch more that you never knew were there, but the job is to not tackle them all at once, to take them on one by one, day by day, and not overwhelm yourself, because this is a new density of time. You don't need to do everything right now, in the now.
And
because the power now is expanded many-fold with these new particles of time.
Another thing I know with people is that they want to know everything in the moment as well, and it's like, no, there's a purpose in unfolding of information. You need to do that healing in that level, and then the clarity will come. And you don't need to know everything now. You just need to do the things that fit in the moment, and then your understanding of what you need to do will reveal itself based on that pre-required component. It's funny, it's like people want to know everything in the moment, but there's an unfolding, and the purpose of the unfolding is to develop the understanding that, I needed to do that healing because then I did it. This reveals itself. And then I'm a match for a soul family member that comes into my life. You know, I've been lonely and I haven't had a partner or whatever, and I had to do 5 healings that cleared me, so I was a match for their frequency. It's not they're going to be a match for me. They're probably waiting for me to do that 20 healings, and then they reveal themselves after that. But you have to be a frequency match.
Right. And that's how our future friends and family and ancestors and people in future generations get to come into our lives by making choices and now that give them newer and higher potentials.
Yeah, that's where maybe I'm wrong in saying that, but to me, I know if I see a variable that I can resolve, then I like to explore it, and that's where I was going back to start, because then...
You're absolutely right. And what I'm just adding another layer is when we choose to resolve it, we add new potentials to the future generations that never had that potential before.
Absolutely. Because one of the big things is, and I don't know how well this is understood, but I've known this for many years, is despite on the soul level, we might not have much that we need to do. We are the custodians of the 2 DNA lineages that we're in the DNA, and therefore we're responsible for all the healing that's unresolved in the DNA. It is a responsibility of being here. Your grandmother's grandmother might have been raped or whatever, and they never resolved that, and that might be still in you. And if you don't, then that can be a variable that can pop up, and people think, I've got all this healing to do, and I keep doing it. But that's the responsibility of being in the skin suit.
Right.
And it sucks. It sucks, but it's good to do.
You're knowing when you don't have to take on your great-grandmother's rape.
Absolutely.
There are other situations where there is a karmic resolution factor to it, and you're doing it out of choice. Not out of tradition, not out of obligation either.
And I'll say what happens to me, right? Because I might feel like there's a variable I need to heal in me, and then I want to exchange money with a healer. But what actually happens is I actually clear the healer and I pay them. But that's the trade. And then I know that they clear so that they'll be able to service hundreds of, maybe thousands of people as well. And I'm a healer in that realm. And then, it's the exchange is needed, and that might suck. But then what happens is maybe I might get 5 clients, after that. So I trust the earth as well, mate. That's a variable that maybe you want to get into as well.
So that variable, we are creating it all. And sometimes we are creating it all means we are creating it all so everyone else could have a greater experience too. That's our contribution and service to the unseen world, in which our dreaming body, which is when we're not our I am now 3D matrix person, is off doing missions and things that are needed in the unseen world to make manifestations in the seen world. Everything that goes on in your seen world has an unseen value to it. All the traffic that you've been through has something to do with the dreams before and after. Because we're all regular people, and you're 1 degree of separation that adds something to your living algorithm, seen and unseen.
Yeah. I mean, I use the reality rules, such as energy exchange, as a component that we operate by. It's not I don't agree with money, and I'm not gonna value this person because I don't agree with money. It is the rule of the reality we're in. So energy exchange is a foundation. So you employ it. I live by it. And say I use that example where I paid money to heal people, but it's the way the rules work, and I'm going into their space, so I respect their space. But every time you heal someone, you do get healing, And maybe you've got the talent, you've got the skills, and so you've invested so much time, say in Andrew's data, which the level of responsibility you have is very high, and it's not an ego thing. It's just you've taken on that challenge and developed yourself, so you are aware. Because I know the majority of the people, even the healers, aren't really that aware of the unseen aspects.
Correct.
They hold the space for it, but they're not totally perceptive of it. So you actually might be the more perceptive one, but you haven't owned your
shit.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like the first part of this chat, I just said I removed so much doubt. I'm so solid in what I perceive, and it's not an egotistic, competitive sort of thing. It's I get it, and it's I want to help explain to you this variable that you don't get, and that's been messing with you. And it's like, if you actually have the courage to open up your perceptions and possibilities that this variable was out there that you're not even aware of, that's where you're vulnerable. So that's the way I sort of operate. Educational with people and stuff. So, yeah.
Well, it all works. In this moment, the moment of now is greatly expanded.
Yeah.
That I'm coming back to as part of this conversation is, what does the 8/8/2019 Lionsgate mean? For those that can operate multiple physics of reality, seen and unseen, there's going to come a new art form of mixing seen and unseen that is totally unprepared for by the system of domination and control.
Okay.
So we've talked about, these missions that our dreaming selves do. People have dreams that they break into buildings, free people, they're being hunted, or they're escaping realities and watching things collapse. A lot of that has a real value to it. And there's a visual process in that dream that's indicating to you that something is rapidly happening that's changing the fundamentals of your dreaming space, and it can have direct impact on your physical world. Well, as people begin to have these deeply missionary-based dreams, mission dreams, their physical realities are going to be having similar themes and concepts reveal themselves.
Okay.
The reality will reveal it. The reality will reveal it.
Yeah, a lot of people, I think this is happening in a lot of people. They're owning their power and their perception. But I still feel a lot of people don't feel that they're worthy of doing the work as well. Is that
It's
something that's going on?
No, it's not worthy of doing the work. They're worthy of doing the work. They aren't courageous enough and committed enough, because that has been bred out of them for 3 generations.
Yeah. It's like, say people have been martyrs and they've been hung and stuff, and they've got the trauma of not wanting to step up and stuff. And
Just being in war, drafted for war. How many more times do I got to go to war? The soul time, and that's part of the weaponization of freedom.
Yeah. But it's not an ego thing or anything. This is where I sort of was saying about me. I've accepted where I'm at, and I feel a lot of people can accept that level of responsibility in themselves, and they are the elder of this era. And once you do that, what potentials open up when you solidify yourself in that position?
Yeah.
And I feel a lot of people have that as a potential, and it's a lot of people don't want to be the teachers, they want to be the students, you know?
Well, there's a lot of students who believe they're the teachers too, and that's an unfortunate scenario we have now.
Yeah.
And that's so many times when people go, why does these updates sound so similar? It's because there are people that have stepped up to the plate but don't have many of the fundamental coping skills to stay and do that.
Yeah.
They just don't have the staying power behind them. And they won't have the staying power until they've had a daily practice that's gone a couple of years.
Yeah. Like, say, doing salt bars and stuff like that, you know?
Whatever it is, a daily clearing practice.
Yeah.
A daily clearing that you've got to be due diligent to yourself about.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I've done for many years, and maybe you want to talk about this as well, is that, say, for my existence, it hasn't been very comfortable. So I haven't had like a real, like, say, a palace or anything to have a space that's safe and stuff. I've actually gone on and accepted that and tried to make myself as strong in all variables. Like, say I was an IT engineer and I had to go out to client sites, and the variables of the client site are unique and you might not be familiar with them, but you can still operate how you operate no matter what, if you get really solid in yourself. And you know, you have to actually put yourself into challenging situations to test yourself. You know, you have to develop those muscles of resilience no matter what's going on. And I feel that's a really powerful variable about people, you know.
It is. And testing those muscles of resilience is something that everybody's got to do on their own. And if you don't regularly test those muscles of resilience, it's very easy to pull a muscle when the resilience is needed.
Absolutely. You're not even aware you need a level of strength that, because I've got this attitude that, say, if you're influenced and stuff, like, your line might be linear, but if you imagine a triangle and you're perceptive on a linear level from that higher point, and there's aspects that just wait for dips, you know, and then they compound the dips, and you're not ready for handling a dip. And then, say, going back to the early stage of this conversation, where like practitioners might get all these clients that are all messed up. It might be waiting for a crack in your dam, and then all these messed up clients come, compound the issue, and then you smash, and then you're out. You've got to sort yourself out. You know, you're not ready for it. So, I like to really continually test my energy fields and stuff like that. I don't know how to explain how do people do it, but it's an instinctive thing. It's like, say, you might go without food for a couple of days and just see how you can go in public, you know, stuff like that.
Or get out there and challenge yourself to go into a busy mall with lots of people in it and drown out the energy and be silent in that moment.
Yes.
Okay.
You talked about writing in a food court and stuff.
Right.
These are these challenges that you can do a couple of times a week just to test yourself. You know, so if you've had a good...
Put yourself on the path of testing as a journey of funness. Yeah. That requires your enthusiasm behind it. Because if you're not enthusiastic about it, you're really not going to learn much from it.
The other thing also, it might be a potential that you do, and then you're a match for a soul family member and stuff, and you wouldn't have been there unless you challenged yourself.
That's right.
And I've found that many times. Like, you think it's randomness, but it's not. There might have been an effort to drain you so you didn't feel up to it, to prevent a meeting and stuff. You know?
That's right.
So those sort of things.
All right, I think I'm done. I'm done for sure.
No worries, mate. Good to catch up.
Yeah, good to catch up, dude. It was a lot of fun tonight. Thank you so much.
That's all right. We'll be in touch, all right?
All right, take it easy.
So I got a question for you now. What started you on your spiritual journey?
I actually went to a festival where there was an eclipse. It was an eclipse festival, and I did the whole thing where you watch the sun with the glasses on, and I got back home to Brisbane in Queensland after the festival, and I had just a very different perception after the eclipse. So I feel that awakened, some soul codes or awareness.
It did. There were other lifetimes where you were a Mayan, an Aztec, an Olmec, and a variety of others from South America who would observe the changes in the eclipses during massive spiritual rituals. And you re-experienced a body memory that triggered a greater soul awakening for you, and that you do have connection to the sun. As I said before, you have all these other soul shards who don't know you exist. And it'll be your spiritual journeying to our sun and then creating a companionship with some of these sun entities who will then bring these messages in what's called 1 degree of separation into those other beings who don't know you exist, so that they can begin their journey into their own Akashic Records to uncover what went on in the creation of the sovereign soul shard that's separate of the time stream that's you. And then there'll be greater journeys until you go to the sun of the other worlds that these other beings of yourself are on, who then may journey into their sun to greet you, and the sun beings will be their protector. And then this is where your personal communication skills will be vitally important, that they understand that you're not here to be in competition. You are not removing their sovereignty in any way, shape, or form, but you are heading to a point in space-time, and of those that want to go under truth and reconciliation, that they begin to amass in the place that you live. And some of these will actually trigger physical beings to get into physical spaceships and to travel to our part of the galaxy to begin to search for you, so that you can start a truth and reconciliation ceremony for your soul and all the processes you went through in timeline genocides.
Wow. It's pretty special.
So how did you find out about me?
So there was, I think about 2 years ago, I stumbled across a YouTube thing that you were talking with a bunch of people on a radio, and I got really interested and sort of got distracted, and then I saw another YouTube thing with you talking about something, and from then on, it was about 1.5 years ago, I think, around that area. From then on, I just followed everything that you'd put out, and I just had an amazing resonance with everything that you were saying.
Very good, very good. So as you began to process the information, that I was giving, did you have reflective moments of you doing something like what I do?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, you are going to be doing something like I do.
Yeah.
And this is where you have to understand the separation of densities. Like with the first caller we had, you have to make sure nothing is recreational anymore if it's your spiritual work. And you have to change your life to adhere to that. And there will be friends who want to say, let's go to the pub, let's go to the bar. And you can still go to the pub and the bar. You can only do it about once a month now. And a little more than 6 or 7 or 8 months from now, it'll be lucky if you do it once every 4 months or once a year, because they are too dirty of environments for you.
Yes, I feel that completely.
Okay? So you need to start figuring out how you can have recreational time that isn't spirituality. That is your absolute most fundamental thing that you do. Clean energy environments. And how do I have fun when I'm not doing my spiritual journeying? You are a multidimensional, multifunctional being, and you will continue your spiritual process. But at those times where you're low on energy and you know you can't keep popping out of your body, like Kathy was saying, you have to tell your body, I need to reserve my energy so I can go out to the beach and fish or go out with my friends and just have a good old time and then come back to my spiritual process in a sacred format and say, this is what I've learned.
Beautiful. Yeah, I completely feel that. I have been struggling with finding friends that I can socialize with and, sort of do the stuff that you would do, sort of not so spiritual. But, I've yet to find people that I can connect with without sort of having the karmic energies and stuff cross over.
Mm-hmm.
Each different bubble of reality is true. A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge. It's the Holy Grail.
Improvise. Mysterious. It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.